And hello, everyone. Ashley Ainsley here, co-founder of Colour in Tech, and I am delighted to be joined by Wendy Mars, who is the esteemed president of EMEA. That's with an R, but Wendy can explain to you what the R stands for at Cisco. And I was really encouraged about the fact that we're able to have this conversation because it actually stems from something that happened over a year ago. So just to give a little bit of context on that before I ask Wendy to tell us a little bit about herself and her work, was that in the follow-up after the murder of George Floyd and the rise of interesting Black Lives Matter across the world, I did some work with Cisco actually, and myself and Wendy spoke about some of the things that were happening in the org and kind of in society at the time, and we knew that we would stay in touch, and we said that we would have a conversation to find out how things are going and what's happened since then. And I think for everybody, there's been a lot of talk. We've done our own research and surveys and stuff like that, and I think it's fair to say there's a diversity of opinion about how successful organizations and companies have been in the last 18 months of moving the dial. But I think what is really important is actually to ask the people who are, in charge of all of that about how they see that, what's their perspective on things and how things are moving on their end as well. So that's why I'm super excited to be able to have this conversation. However, while I've given Wendy a really bad, probably, introduction, I'm keen for her just to let us know a little bit about, one, what that R is, and two, a little bit about where her role sits. So, Wendy, are you just able to let us know, one, a little bit about yourself and that work and your journey, and actually then almost into my first question, which after that is kind of, so we had that conversation, a few months ago, more than a few months ago now, but what happened next?
Yeah, Ashley, it's great to be here with you today to have this conversation. And, as you said, we met, feels like quite some time ago now, and you were a massive, massive help to me personally, and also to Cisco as we started that conversation post the, with the Black Lives Matter movement. So if I look for me, actually, to answer your question, so I'm responsible for the region of Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Russia for Cisco. So within that, I run the business for that geographic part of the business. And if I look for us, when you and I spoke, and and I would say that a lot of my time initially, since then, was spent around making sure that I started to educate myself, Ashley, around more around the topic, more around some of the challenges that our Black colleagues are facing. Within the industry and society overall. And really within Cisco, we put a lot of initiatives in place in order to make sure that we could really spend time understanding, and working through some of those different areas and educate and inform ourselves. So I think that was certainly, what we spent the first six to 9 months or so on, really making sure that we could be informed and stay close to our colleagues. And then, since then, Ashley, if I look at what's happened since then, we have quite a lot of things that we've put in place within the company in order to help us as an organization, but also to start to, as you say, there's been a lot of talk around this topic. How do you start to really track measurable actions and to show progress, which is something that I'm very keen to do, and I think is very, very important for us in the industry overall and society overall. So, very happy actually to talk through some of those in detail with you today. I'm a action-oriented person, and I think it's great to have conversation, but it's very much around moving the needle for us and what can we put in place to really drive change.
So let's come to that, I suppose. And there's two ways that I could approach about this, but actually, I'll kind of go with really the objectives. I mean, we've seen lots of organizations put out targets and metrics and ambitions and statements. But from your perspective, within the org, where do you sit on that? And I suppose, therefore, how do you feel if you're thinking about action that you are on getting towards some of those objectives that, you set yourself?
Yeah, so I would say that I've not set targets as such, and I say that because I'm not sure that I believe setting specific targets is the right route. I think what really is important is to set tangible, clear actions and to measure people on those actions. So that's certainly the approach that we have taken within the business. And if I give you some examples of some of those things. So, certainly for us around, as we think about recruitment, we make sure that we have very diverse panels as we're recruiting talent, skills and capabilities, both for internal movement of talent within Cisco, but also when we're hiring external talent as well. So making sure that we've got truly diverse panels representing, the breadth of diversity that we're looking for. So we make sure that we have Black colleagues, present on those panels. That's one thing. The second, and we've run mandatory training on how to actually run interview processes so people are informed, aware, and we're running that in the right way. Second thing that we've been doing, we have an initiative within Cisco called the Proximity Initiative. So within that, what we're doing is we are actively making sure that our leadership are proactively meeting twice a quarter with people who are different from themselves, and actually making sure that they are sitting for an hour. Again, understanding some of the different dynamics that individuals are going through. Well, for me, just this week, I had 2 of those conversations that I've ran through, spending an hour with people where I'm meeting different colleagues I wouldn't normally interact with within the organization. And then what that's useful for is to, form a new connection, form a new network, but then also this is an important route for sponsorship for people as well. So, if I look and there are individuals that I meet personally that I may look to sponsor through the organization, keep a keen interest in their progression through the company. Plus, that's something that's scaled across all of the leadership within Cisco. So that's another thing that has been done. And then also, if I look at our Connected Black community, so I've spent some time with our Connected Black community to really make sure that I believe actually with this is something that we need to work on in partnership together. And I've said that to our Black community to say, there are certain things that certainly, for me, I have a strong focus on, I intend to move the needle, but I need the help and collaboration with the team as we move forward. And something that really, when I ran a conversation earlier this week, actually listening with the group, something that really stood out for me actually as a key takeaway was our Black colleagues are looking for representation. And it's a feeling that there is a lack of representation at some of the senior levels within the organization. So for me, from that, there's some clear actions I've taken around, if I look within Cisco, and if I look at the different levels of grading, internal grading that you have within an organization, for me, there's clearly in certain parts of the company, it's felt that there are glass ceilings, people not being able to progress. So, I've taken the action to say, okay, let's make sure that we can understand, in detail our Black talent, understand where and how we can progress, some high potential talent, and start moving forward and accelerating that talent through the organization as well. So there's, some things that we've done there to help to drive and push forward on this representation piece, actually, which has really stuck with me as a key challenge that we need to address.
So thanks for sharing on some of that, and it made me think, because when I think about our community and the people, that will be streaming and watching this, we've had lots of sessions at Black Tech Fest where folks have spoken about some of the challenges in the workplace. So I know you mentioned the glass ceiling, and we've had a whole session on what do we need to do to get more Black women to the leadership perspective. And, we spoke about some of the barriers there. We've had allyship sessions as well. And I think when we talk about challenges, sometimes we always put the agency on individuals, and people almost at the bottom of the one to think about, okay, well, how can they overcome these challenges? It's kind of, let's accept that these challenges exist, and how do we equip people to fight those challenges or build them, rather than actually saying from an organizational point perspective and as a leader, how do I remove those challenges from existing, if you get what I mean? And actually, ideally we don't have the challenge, and therefore we don't need to overcome them. So from your perspective, looking at it from actually, the other end of the pyramid, if you take, taking yourself at the top, what are some of the challenges that you have faced on this journey, or you think are still present, or actually you've tackled and addressed to look to, remove effectively differently to enable, I suppose, the destructions of those glass, and in some instances, I would say even concrete ceilings, because, the glass ceilings still suggest that you can kind of see up there, where actually, in some instances, I would say it's a concrete one. So yeah, what are some of those challenges?
I think a lot of it can start from actually knowing the talent that you have within the organization, really knowing that talent and making a conscious effort and being absolutely fine about it. And certainly this is a learning I've gone through, I'm now much more directive in talking about the Black talent within the company at Cisco. And you taught me that, of not feeling a dynamic of I shouldn't focus on just that, that just even using the word, of black talent within the organization. And, if I look for now, I am very directive, actually, is when I talk with recruitment teams, when I talk about when we have roles that are open, saying around, as we look at diverse slates, saying I want to see Black talent, on the interview, on the panel, but also in the pipeline, proactively going out and looking for Black talent. If I look for our Black colleagues in Cisco, I've said, please do refer your friends, your family, family, your network, your Black network, so that we can start to proactively make sure that we're building a pipeline of talent that we can bring into the company. So if I look at one of the things I feel that we've done a good job at within Cisco is around the apprentice program, as an example. So if I look at the apprentice program, is highly diverse in nature, as we look from both the gender and also, background, ethnicity, for that group, very, very diverse. And if I look at when getting people into the company from that apprentice program and also the graduate program, we're very, very conscious, around making sure that we are selecting diverse talent as we do that. I think it's the challenge is one around getting talent in through the recruitment engine of people who may have more experience into the business. And this is where, if I look for our Connected Black Professionals group, I've said, listen, I need you to help me to build that pipeline. And, doing that through talking to your colleagues and using your network more broadly to help with that. So I think that is something that is, back to my comment on working in partnership with the Connected Black Professionals, is really, really important. And also, I think the other thing actually is being very conscious about sponsorship for people. And starting to do that, starting to drive that. And, if I think back to some of the things that we put in place for progression for women, and have done that over the years, it's, for me, it's taking that logic of some of those things that were done there and saying, we're now going to do this for Black colleagues within Cisco. So development programs, sponsorship initiatives, but really measuring progression in a very deliberate manner to show. So, when we have this conversation again in a year from now, I can demonstrate to you where and how we truly move the needle.
Got it. So I think one of the challenges that when we spoke with a few of the other senior leaders that we've had at the festival is actually, on keeping on the agenda. I think, if I reflect on your role, and you're quite, almost humble at the beginning of it, but, it spans 10,000 of people, I think probably 30, 40 odd countries in there. And within the world that we're living in, there's a lot of other things going on. And, this is important, but, even to the Black community, there are other things that also matter in our lives, our economic security, our safety, the pandemic, which is happening. And, there is a diversity of opinion throughout the continent and beyond. I think there's also a diversity of reality. In some parts of the world, diversity is different, and for some parts of the geographies that that you operate in, the challenges and even the data will be different. There'll be pockets of better performance and worse performance, I'm sure. So from your perspective, looking at this as a kind of almost a pan-European, pan-EMEA thing, it's actually, we talk about Europe, but there's that A in there as well, isn't there? Diversity again is, in a different kind of context when we look at that. So, how do you keep this on the agenda? And from an international perspective, how do you do that, recognizing the nuances that exist across, a geography which, encompasses about 2 or 3 billion people?
Yeah, so if I look at, here's some of the things that I'm doing to make sure that this remains very top of mind for all of us. So, if I look for the meetings with the Connected Black professional community, it's my intention to keep that in a monthly manner. So I can stay connected to that group, but also be able to, it's like a joint conscience together of what's happening, and keep that top of mind through that engagement that occurs. In addition to that, within my senior leadership team, we have a work group on talent across the across the region overall, that we're focusing around a number of different areas. In that work group, there's a specific focus on Black talent. And I've done that very intentionally to make sure that we don't end up getting distracted more broadly with all of the different types of talent groups, and have a laser sharp focus on this, because otherwise, again, you don't progress if you don't maintain the focus. And back to your comment around, if you think about diversity, and it'll looks different depending on the market in which you're in. And to your comment about Africa, as an example, with the Connected Black professional group that we had on, there was representation from those different countries. And it was very, very interesting to hear some of the different dynamics from folks in different markets. And if I look at some of the things of, for example, colleagues who are based in countries in Africa, I would say, if you look at roles, if you think about progression for people who may be in a country in Africa that may be a smaller portion of the business than, say, some of the larger Western European locations, how can we make sure that we are helping that talent to have a broader reach of scope, such that they may do a job which is an EMEA job from their location in the continent of Africa, or taking those individuals and saying, right, let's rotate you or move you, so you start to get experiences across the business overall. And I think it's, again, picking some examples and saying, how do we address some of these, and starting to show progression and movement on those things. Because the key thing is, actually, I feel on all of this is, don't overcomplicate things, because then you run the danger of you get nothing done.
Yeah, and I thought that's such an important message, because I think I know I mentioned it when we spoke, but for the benefit of kind of a broader audience here today, a lot of the time with Colour in Tech, folks are will ask us, where do we start, or how are we doing in comparison, and 2020 saw a lot of people move to more immediate steps, because I think what happened a lot of the time is, I would call it almost like, action paralysis, where it's like, we've got to understand our data. We need to know where we're working from in order to get a sense of what we need to do. And that activity is of course important, of course it's interesting, but it's like, don't let the collection of the data be the objective,
Yeah, but also I think, don't use the fact that the collection of the data could be a barrier to be an excuse to do nothing.
Exactly, and I think that's, frankly, where we had a lot of paralysis, really. I think people would say, right, well, basically come back next year when we know where we are. And it's like, well, actually, for those 365 days, your colleagues are still, feeling like they don't belong here. Attrition and hiring is still happening. And the reality is, we needed to move more quickly, which I think is now where we're at a state where it's like, look, actually, I'm always that, position, like, how do we do more? Like, my scenario, it's like, if there's a full dichotomy there, it's like, well, why should we just do this or that? How do we make sure we do both? Or how do we equip that to happen? But then, so if I move on to that, and, I appreciate there's a lot of action, as you mentioned, you've given us really tangible examples of, you take a colleague who might be sat in Ghana or Lagos or Nairobi, and actually, well, yeah, they can have an EMEA role, because actually, let's elevate their ability to do that work from Nairobi. But what can people expect from yourself or Cisco? I think maybe those are two questions in there. I mean, maybe the first one is, I suppose, to people who are, outside looking in and thinking, okay, this is interesting. I'm hearing this conversation, but, if I was to interact with Cisco, what do I expect? What should I be seeing? What will the organization be like in, another 12 months' time? What should people expect?
So I think that, if you look at what should people expect, back to this thing on representation, a needle mover on that. And if I look at that around levels from a leadership perspective, that's something I'm going to stay very, very focused on personally, and push my leaders through the organization. So to my comments on perceptions of glass ceilings or concrete ceilings, as you had mentioned, to make sure that we have real progress there around certain grade levels within the company to make sure that we have representation of Black colleagues. And so that will be something that we will be really looking at. If I look right now, we have a number of jobs open within Cisco, and I would love to see people, who may be listening today, to apply, to those jobs. If I think about, this with the work that you do in the technology sector, actually, there are many different types of roles in technology. And, it's not all about deep techies. There's many types of roles. So, I think there's an element here of, for people to understand there are some fantastic jobs in technology. Please put your hand up, lean in. So if I look at that, I would ask that, this folks listening today, please do apply, look out, and certainly I'm asking, our Connected Black community to really, proactively push their network to come, and approach Cisco as well. And, and also if I look at, actually for me, I've got a role open right now as a direct report to me, and I went to the Connected Black community and said, give me some candidates. So again, proactively, not being shy about pushing to get, to make sure that Black colleagues have the opportunity and not sitting back and thinking, I'm not sure if I can do that, or, if I have the skills or the capability. So, I think again, encouragement, pushing forward and sponsorship.
Amazing. And my final question on this, and actually this is one which I'll give you a bit of time to think of, because it'll kind of put you slightly on the spot maybe, but don't worry, it's a good one. In the sense of, today at Black Tech Fest, we've got, lots of amazing organizations and companies doing really interesting things. And, I'm infused from the beginning of my career about working in technology. It's why I love this industry. I'm sure, from your perspective, it's innovative. There's always something new happening. If nothing else, you have to keep on your toes, because, if you stand still, you're moving backwards. And there's so many industries where just the pace of change is glacial compared to tech, where the pace of change literally happens, with a few buttons on an app sometimes. What is it that excites you about Cisco actually? Like, what is it that keeps you, excited to lead the path in the organization? What is it that, when you wake up in the morning, you're like, I can't wait to get on that, or actually I'm really proud of this thing that we did, and actually I can't see, where this is going, but I like the fact that we're one of the first people to work that out. What is it that excites you?
I would say, so I'm going to answer it twofold: what excites me and what makes me proud. So what excites me is, I've been a technologist all my life. So alarmingly, in January next year, it'll be 30 years. Actually, can you believe that? 30 years. I
can't.
And, if you think around that, just the sheer amount of change, that we've seen in technology over that time has been remarkable. And if you think about what's the amount of change that you'll see in the next 10 years, then in the next 30, it'll be incredible. So that really excites me. It motivates me. And I think now more than ever before, people are seeing the value of technology in lots of different types of industries. So if I think for me, being able to help companies to see that, help people to see that as a big skills agenda that's so important, and to get people comfortable with the opportunity that technology brings, but also where it can drive real value and relevance. And if I think of what I'm proud of, I think what we've been able to do in the technology sector to help, in a number of these areas. And I'm really proud of the culture of Cisco, the culture of the company. And, and if I look at, do I believe that we can, really accelerate in this area, with our Black colleagues? Absolutely, I do. And I want to make sure that we are really driving and helping to drive the change. The company's agenda is driving an inclusive future for all. And if I look at that, I can really connect with that as a purpose statement, for the organization overall. So I think those are things that motivate me and make me proud.
Nice. Well, yeah, amazing, and thank you for that. So, look, I promised that, with the conversation that we already had, we said that time has flown, and look, there we are, 25 minutes already has gone. So I do just want to say a massive thank you to Wendy for her time, and actually her supporting doing this, for those who aren't aware, we actually spoke with Wendy about this months and months ago, and it wasn't a, what the dates, what the times. It was a yes, like I'll be there, and I think that is so important, and I do want people to reflect on their leaders and are they willing to make time to do stuff, which is one, helpful obviously for us as an organisation, and therefore helpful for our community that we're building as well. So I do just want to say thank you, and that really is appreciated. As Wendy did mention, Cisco is looking for amazing folks, across the organisation, across the ecosystem as well. So obviously, take Wendy up on that offer. I'm sure she'll be delighted, whether you're a director who wants to work directly with Wendy or for some of those other opportunities. So do please lean in, and if you're interested or more curious, do just get in touch with our team, and we can obviously help facilitate that as well. But without further ado, I do hope that everybody else enjoys the rest of the content today. Thank you so much again to Wendy and the Cisco team for making that happen. I hope everybody else enjoys the rest of the festival today. Cheers.